Take three. Hi everybody. It's Tom Jane here. I've been promising to read this for several days now, and I just haven't had a chance to get around to it. And space the headspace. Come on, there it is. Um, the headspace to like be able to focus on it without getting too weird. Ozzy Parzian posted this a few days ago. Ozzy's Iranian American person. I don't think she wants to go back to Iran. Um, I forget exactly what the whole story was. I don't even want to go into that because it's not relevant. This is interesting. A psychiatrist who survived the Holocaust explains why meaningfulness matters more than happiness. And this is by an Emily Esfahani Smith, who's probably also Iranian, which is why Ozzy had it. And it was published in the Atlantic on October 22nd of 2014. And this is about, I guess it's a book review of Viktor Frankl, the renowned Viennese psychiatrist and author of Man's Search for Meaning. It opens with a quote from, I suppose, the book. This isn't, I don't know what this is. Maybe it's not a book review. I don't know, because the book was published in 1946. It is the very pursuit of happiness that thwarts happiness. And this was when that was. I haven't really even read the article because I stopped right there, and because it just went pow in my head. It is the very pursuit of happiness that thwarts happiness. That's some expectations. You think you're going to be happy if you do thus and such, and then you do thus and such, and Murphy rears his head, and what you wanted to have come out of it didn't, and now you're unhappy. More than you were before you started, like, struggling to make something happy. It just, boy, I had every reason in the world to be unhappy, and I struggled against being unhappy all my life. Especially projecting it out onto other people. I found my own inner peace and bliss point, and a trusted voice, a voice I could trust inside my head, one that was always made me feel good when it spoke to me. Because there's so many, it's a din. There's Kurt Vonnegut had a character called Kilgore Trout, and Kilgore Trout wrote these books, and one of them was called Venus on the Half Shell. And Philip Farmer come along and expanded the little blurb that Vonnegut had put in one of his books. I think it was Breakfast of Champions, because that was the one that Kilgore Trout was in the most. There's one chapter, this planet, where the people's ancestors get one day, they live in, I'm not sure, I forget exactly how it was set up, but they live inside, they all live inside you, and they all get one day to take over. They take turns. It's like, so somebody only gets to be like in charge of your body for one day every so number of years. So they tended to like go nuts when they had a body, because otherwise they were like, disembodied spirits. So they had this body for one day every few years. So there's a lot of people fuck themselves to death as what was happening. It's pretty crazy. I don't know why I went there. Um, oh yeah, the voices in your head. Yes, those your that's your ancestors, and once every X number of years they get to take over. So anyway, back to this. Um, in September 1942, Viktor Frankl, a prominent Jewish psychiatrist and neurologist in Vienna, was arrested and transported to a Nazi concentration camp with his wife and parents. 3 years later, when his camp was liberated, most of his family, including his pregnant wife, had perished, but he, prisoner number 119104, had lived. In his best-selling 1946 book, Man's Search for Meaning, which he wrote in 9 days about his experiences in the camps, Frankl concluded that the difference between those who had lived and those who had died came down to one thing: meaning, an insight he came to early in life. When he was a high school student, one of his science teachers declared to the class, "Life is nothing more than a combustion process, a process of oxidation." Frankl jumped out of his chair and responded, "Sir, if this is so, then what can be the meaning of life?" As he saw in the camps, those who found meaning, even in the most horrendous circumstances, were far more resilient to suffering than those who did not. Boy, look at them kids in Gaza, sitting there with their legs are blown off and sitting in a green shooting peace signs at the camera. Everything can be taken from a man but one thing, Frankl wrote in Man's Search for Meaning: the last of the human freedoms, to choose one's attitude in any given set of circumstances, to choose one's own way. Boy, that's what's kept me poor all my life. My father was determined that I would. He told me one time, there's this magic $50,000 number, and the reason for the $50,000 number is that when I was driving a taxi cab, I picked up a fellow downtown in real heavy traffic, and we got stuck in it, and he wasn't even going very far. He was only going a couple of blocks from like Adams and Wacker down to the Union League Club. Turned out he was vice president at Marsh McLennan, and we were talking about, at that time I was trying to get it together to, I wasn't even looking for that much money. I figured I could do it for $10,000 or $15,000 to go down to Colombia and set up a fish collecting station down on San Andres Island. And we were talking, and that was one of the aspects of the conversation. I don't want to go too deep into it right now because it got crazy. That venture capitalists didn't even want to hear about investments less than $50,000. Now this is in 1973, 75. And I'd imagine today they probably don't even want to talk to you for less than $500,000. So anyway, Frankl worked as a therapist in the camps. And in his books, he gives the example of 2 suicidal inmates he encountered there. Like many others in the camps, these 2 men were hopeless and thought that there was nothing more to expect from life, nothing to live for. In both cases, Frankl writes, it was a question of getting them to realize that life was still expecting something from them. Something in the future was expected of them. For one man, it was his young child, who was then living in a foreign country. For the other, a scientist, it was a series of books that he needed to finish. Frankl writes, this uniqueness and singleness which distinguishes each individual and gives a meaning to his existence has a bearing on creative work, as much as it does on human love. When the impossibility of replacing a person is realized, it allows the responsibility which a man has for his existence and its continuance to appear in all of its magnitude. I didn't read that right. A man who becomes conscious of the responsibility he bears toward a human being who affectionately waits for him or to an unfinished work will never be able to throw away his life. He knows the why for his existence and will be able to bear almost any how. And that reminds me that earlier I was talking to someone on the edge of suicide in one of the groups. So let me go take a look back in on that conversation, because as I recall, I had asked her something and I never got a response before I got called away. And I never even got a chance to tell her I was going to get called away. So let's find that sucker. What time is it? 11 o'clock. God, it's been about 4 hours, hasn't it? I better just go to that group. Well, I've been getting hundreds of notifications every day. Mostly likes and shares and stuff, or announcements of somebody else's posting from somewhere that I'm following. Shit, I don't even remember the name of the group. I've only been in it for a day. There she is. Okay, I hope there's a link to the group. There it is. At least that's the name. There it is. Bam, bam. Thank you, ma'am. Oh boy. Oh, me too. Okay, well, this is a good sign. It's not up on top. Here it is. Oh, geez. That's not a good way to go. Who wants you to hit yourself? Oh shit, I got that running. Fuck. Don't I? Yeah. Suicide Watch. Uh let me deal with this and I'll come back to it. Um Sister responded to my last question, which she just wants to slit her throat and bleed out. Um okay. Oh boy. Where was I? um it was talking about the two suicidal um, inmates, and then one had a book that he wanted to finish, and the other had a kid. This uniqueness and singleness, which distinguishes each individual and gives a meaning to his existence, has a bearing on creative work as much as it does on human love. When the impossibility of replacing a person is realized, it allows the responsibility which a man has for his existence and its continuance to appear in all its magnitude. A man who becomes conscious of the responsibility he bears toward a human being who affectionately waits for him or to an unfinished work will never be able to throw away his life. He knows the why for his existence and will be able to bear almost any how. In 1991, the Library of Congress and Book of the Month Club listed Man's Search for Meaning as one of the 10 most influential books in the United States. It sold millions of copies worldwide. Now, over 20 years later, the book's ethos, its emphasis on meaning, the value of suffering, and the responsibility to someone greater than the self, seems to be at odds with our culture, which is more interested in the pursuit of individual happiness than in the search for meaning. To the European, Frankl wrote, it is characteristic of the American culture that, again and again, one is commanded and ordered to be happy. But happiness cannot be pursued, it must ensue. One must have a reason to be happy. And here's a statement, I don't know where it came from. Even though American happiness levels are at a 4-year high, 4 out of 10 Americans have not discovered a satisfying life purpose. I guess this is according to Gallup poll. The happiness levels of Americans are at a 4-year high. As is, it seems, the number of best-selling books with the word happiness in their titles. As of January 2013, Gallup also reports that nearly 60% of all Americans today feel happy without a lot of stress or worry. Good drugs. On the other hand, according to the Center for Disease Control, 4 out of 10 Americans have not discovered a satisfying life purpose. 40% either do not think their lives have a clear sense of purpose or are neutral about whether their lives have purpose. Nearly a quarter of Americans feel neutral or do not have a strong sense of what makes their lives meaningful. Research has shown that having purpose and meaning in life increases overall well-being and life satisfaction, improves mental and physical health, enhances resiliency, and enhances self-esteem and decreases the chances of depression. On top of that, the single-minded pursuit of happiness is ironically leaving people less happy, according to recent research. It is the very pursuit of happiness Frankl knew that thwarts happiness. This is why some researchers are cautioning against the pursuit of mere happiness. It's more like, for me, it's more like, what do you like to do that makes you happy? You know, what is it that you do that you enjoy doing? And just go and fucking do it all the time. It's easy enough. So I always had to, because my parents hated me. So I read a lot, and I played with fish a lot when I was young, and went out, in the house, and stayed away from them as much as possible because they'd beat me up if they didn't like the way what I said. And spent a lot of time outside with people. People who need people are the luckiest people. You know that one. And it's always been the same kind of people as the 420 family. Individuals who don't exactly fit in because they're free thinkers, and free thinkers don't really like to commit to hive minds. They're not true believers. Free thinking and true believing, two different things. So I'm always, I get out of my cage and go find other people that got out of their cage and want to party. That's what I've always been. And I never like hanging out in bars. I probably spent more time I spent in the hut the last couple of years at the 420 shows, more time than I spent in bars in the last 30 years. Anyway, let's get back to this, and I'll go off when I finish reading it. It looks like it's still got quite a bit to go. We had some fair. I remember it wasn't that long. It wasn't too bad, but it was fairly long. So let's get back to reading it, and then I can get silly. Um, where was it? Son of a bitch. Oh, there we go. Yeah. This is what. Oh, yeah. This is why some researchers are cautioning against the pursuit of mere happiness. In a new study, which will be published this year in a forthcoming issue of Positive Psychology, psychological scientists asked nearly 400 Americans aged 18 to 78 whether they thought their lives were meaningful and or happy. Oh, let's see if I can find that one, because it's this is from 2014. Um, so that's probably it's I'm sure it's been published by now. Examining their self-reported attitudes toward meaning, happiness, and many other variables like stress levels, spending patterns, and having children, over a month-long period, the researchers found that a meaningful life and happy life overlap in certain ways, but are ultimately very different. Leading a happy life, the psychologists found, is associated with being a taker, while leading a meaningful life corresponds with being a giver. Okay, I can go with that. Happiness without meaning characterizes a relatively shallow, self-absorbed, or even selfish life, in which things go well, needs and desires are easily satisfied, and difficult or taxing engagements or entanglements are avoided. I could never afford to avoid them. How do a happy life and meaningful life differ? Happiness, they found, is about feeling good. Specifically, the researchers found that people who are happy tend to think that life is easy, they are in good physical health, and they are able to buy the things that they need and want. While not having enough money decreases how happy and meaningful you consider your life to be, it has a much greater impact on happiness. The happy life is also defined by a lack of stress or worry. Most important, from a social perspective, the pursuit of happiness is associated with a selfish behavior, being, as mentioned, a taker rather than a giver. The psychologists give an evolutionary explanation for this. Happiness is about drive reduction. If you have a need or a desire like hunger, you satisfy it, and that makes you happy. People become happy, in other words, when they get what they want. Humans, then, are not the only ones who can feel happy. Animals have needs and drives too, and when those drives are satisfied, animals also feel happy, the researchers point out. Happy people get a lot of joy from receiving benefits from others, while people leading meaningful lives get a lot of joy from giving to others. Yep. It gets embarrassing when I'm playing music and these people start genuflecting and shit. Explained Kathleen Bowes, one of the authors of the study, in a recent presentation at the University of Pennsylvania. In other words, meaning transcends the self, while happiness is all about giving the self what it wants. It's been, for me, it's always been like this higher inner self telling me, hey, look, just this is what you got to do. And I was given a very talented set of tools here. My brain works real well, and it's all crammed full of all sorts of shit that people have need for and use for all the time. Um, I have skills with my hands in trauma care, um, and have had need for and use for those skills in real time on the street more than once. Starting when I was like 8 years old, maybe. And a kid that I was out running around with in the park, we were jumping around in the pond, and he cut his foot real bad on a can or something that was in the water. But I dealt with it. I already knew how to, deal with stopping the bleeding and shit. And we got home. Um, anyway, What sets human beings apart from animals is not the pursuit of happiness, which occurs all across the natural world, but the pursuit of meaning, which is unique to humans. According to Roy Baumeister, the lead researcher of the study and author, with John Tierney, of the recent book Willpower, Rediscovering the Greatest Human Strength. Baumeister, a social psychologist at Florida State University, was named an ISI highly cited scientific researcher in 2003. The study participants reported deriving meaning from giving a part of themselves away to others and making a sacrifice on behalf of the overall group. In the words of Martin E. P. Seligman, one of the leading psychological scientists alive today, in a meaningful life, you use your highest strengths and talents to belong to and serve something you believe is larger than the self. Yeah, but institutions are not kind of on my list. For instance, having more meaning in one's life was associated with activities like buying presents for others. I wish I could. I wish that, but that's family shit. Taking care of kids, don't have any of those, and arguing. I get to do plenty of that. Fortunately, my friends are real good at it and are nice about it, and it's fun instead of getting people upset. People whose lives have high levels of meaning often actively seek meaning out, even when they know it will come at the expense of happiness. I got a winner story on that one. I got a heavy karma story on this one that I'll tell. I'll save it for the end. Because they have invested themselves, and this just happened today. This was like, wow. I probably should read that too while I'm at it. Of course, no, I don't know if I should because I don't really have permission from him. He's pretty rattled. He's real rattled. Because they have invested, it's a young kid. You'll love this story. This is amazing. This is just one of those, wow, did that really happen? Because they have invested themselves in something bigger than themselves, they also worry more and have higher levels of stress and anxiety in their lives than happy people. Yeah, especially the poor ones who are committed to social injustice, to fighting social injustice. Having children, for example, is associated with a meaningful life and requires self-sacrifice, but has been famously associated with low happiness among parents, including the ones in this study. In fact, according to Harvard psychologist Daniel Gilbert, research shows that parents are less happy interacting with their children than they are exercising, eating, and watching television. Something's wrong there. Unless they do it together with the kids, that'd be a good idea. Partly what we do as human beings is to take care of others and contribute to others. This makes life meaningful, but it does not necessarily make us happy. Baumeister told me in an interview, meaning is not only about transcending the self, but also about transcending the present moment, which is perhaps the most important finding of the study, according to the researchers. While happiness is an emotion felt in the here and now, it ultimately fades away, just as all emotions do. Positive effects and feelings of pleasure are fleeting. The amount of time people report feeling good or bad correlates with happiness, but not at all with meaning. Meaning, on the other hand, is enduring. It connects the past to the present to the future. Taking beyond the present moment into the past or future was a sign of the relatively meaningful but unhappy life. The researchers write, happiness is not generally found in contemplating the past or future. That is, people who thought more about the present were happier, but people who spent more time thinking about the future or past struggles and suffering felt more meaning in their lives, though they were less happy. There's a balance there. I mean, I'm one of them old hippies and Papa Ram Dass and shit, and be here now. It's the only dance there is. And the more you worry about yesterday, fret over the mistakes you made yesterday and worry about what's coming tomorrow, the more it takes away from the happiness today. And I've got I've got what makes me happy um, all around me in my home, and there are things I can take from myself in my home out to the street and make other people happy with it. And that gives my life meaning. It's just, spreading happiness when there's so many reasons to be unhappy. Um, so I stay happy, sort of. I mean, that's a problem. I could never be totally happy until I got the right kind of plumbing down there. Um, but otherwise, I do pretty well, especially for a transgender person. So having negative events happen to you, the study found, decreases your happiness, but increases the amount of meaning you have in life. Boy, is this young man he got a big learning in that today. It's like, wow. Um, Another study from 2011 confirmed this, finding that people who have meaning in their lives in the form of a clearly defined purpose rate their satisfaction with life higher even when they were feeling bad than those who did not have a clearly defined purpose. If there is meaning in life at all, Frankel wrote, then there must be meaning in suffering. Yeah, and the 420 family suffers through their straight jobs all week and comes out and parties with Randy and the band every Saturday, and it's like zero drama. Everybody's grinning, having a great time, and that's meaning. And then we got the videos to watch all week, which brings us back to Frankel's life, and specifically a decisive experience he had before he was sent to the concentration camps. It was an incident that emphasizes the difference between the pursuit of meaning and the pursuit of happiness in life. In his early adulthood, before he and his family were taken away from the camps, Frankl had established himself as one of the leading psychiatrists in Vienna and the world. As a 16-year-old boy, for example, he struck up a correspondence with Sigmund Freud and one day sent Freud a two-page paper he had written. Freud, impressed by Frankel's talent, sent the paper to the International Journal of Psychoanalysis for publication. I hope you don't object, Frankel, Freud wrote the teenager. While he was in medical school, Frankel distinguished himself even further. Not only did he establish suicide prevention centers for teenagers, a precursor to his work in the camps, but he was also developing his signature contribution to the field of clinical psychology, logotherapy. That's field of clinical psychology, logotherapy, which is meant to help people overcome depression and achieve well-being by finding their unique meaning in life. By 1941, his theories had received international attention, and he was working as the chief of neurology at Vienna's Rothschild Hospital, where he risked his life and career by making false diagnoses of mentally ill patients so that they would not, per Nazi orders, be euthanized. That was the same year when he had a decision to make, a decision that would change his life. With his career on the rise and the threat of Nazis looming over him, Frankel had applied for a visa to America, which he was granted in 1941. By then, the Nazis had already started rounding up the Jews and taking them away to concentration camps, focusing on the elderly first. Frankel knew that it would only be time before the Nazis came to take his parents away. He also knew that once they did, he had a responsibility to be there with his parents to help them through the trauma of adjusting to camp life. On the other hand, as a newly married man, with his visa in hand, he was tempted to leave for America and flee to safety, where he could distinguish himself even further in his field. So, as Anna S. Redsand recounts in her biography of Frankel, he was at a loss for what to do, so he set out for St. Stephen's Cathedral in Vienna to clear his head. Listening to the organ music, he repeatedly asked himself, should I leave my parents behind? Should I say goodbye and leave them to their fate? Where does his responsibility lie? He was looking for a hint from heaven. When he returned home, he found it. A piece of marble was lying on the table. His father explained that it was from the rubble of one of the nearby synagogues that the Nazis had destroyed. The marble contained the fragment of one of the 10 Commandments, the one about honoring your father and your mother. With that, Frankel decided to stay in Vienna and forego whatever opportunities for safety and career advancement awaited him in the United States. He decided to put aside his individual pursuits to serve his family and later other inmates in the camps. The wisdom that Frankel derived from his experiences there, in the middle of unimaginable human suffering, is just as relevant now as it was then. Being human always points and is directed to something or someone other than oneself, be it a meaning to fulfill or another human being to encounter. The more one forgets himself by giving himself to a cause to serve or another person to love, the more human he is. Baumeister and his colleagues would agree that the pursuit of meaning is what makes human beings uniquely human. By putting aside our selfish interests to serve someone or something larger than ourselves, by devoting our lives to giving rather than taking, we're not only expressing our fundamental humanity, but are also acknowledging that there is more to the good life than the pursuit of simple happiness. Boy, it's been going on for 45 minutes almost. Oh, pollen, dust. Ugh. Smoke a lot less this time of year. It'll get so bad sometimes I can't smoke anything at all. Hardly breathe when I go out the door. So dusty, full of pollen. At least I can. I probably should bust out the air filters too. You know, I need to get this stuff out of the air, especially when we talk. So my jaw is a little inflamed. We probably should get that up. Now I was going to tell you the story of what happened today with young Grayson, one of the jewelers, stonecutter and jeweler, had some kind of court hearing where there was going to be a settlement in a lawsuit in his favor of about $20,000. And on his way to the courthouse, somebody fell out in the street. And he went up to see what was going on, and the guy was having guy was about to die from overdose, heroin overdose, opioid overdose. And gave him all, trauma care that he needed to keep from dying. Because the guy was going to, just the way things were, the guy was getting ready to vomit, and he was going to drown in his own vomit, which is the way Jimi Hendrix died, allegedly. And he had a shot of Narcan or something on him to bring him down from the overdose, and dealt with it, and was late for his court hearing and defaulted. And his lawyer was like just enraged at him, and fired him or pulled out. Whatever you call a lawyer terminating the relationship, you're out of here. And he lost and he's in debt. He's hurting because of it. I told him I'd front him some stone and metal, if he wanted. I'd give him open invoice or give him some stuff of mine to work on. And he we'd sell it together and split it. No good deed remains unpunished. It's I don't. People I know find their happiness in the meaning, in the meaningfulness of their lives. So this is what makes them happiest. They feel fulfilled when they do something that makes other people happy. People like Molly and Stacy, they're moms, and they're just like their families run them ragged, but it's fulfilling to them because they're moms, and their families are supposed to run them ragged. Um, I don't know. I guess I've talked enough about that. I hope you enjoyed the reading, and thanks for watching. Happy day. Bye.